about to hear from a couple of folks who are going to talk about their experience in building a company in Canada, in Toronto. And they're going to talk about some of the highlights, some of the reasons that compelled them to do this, some of the challenges they have, but also some of the plans they have going forward. So I beg for your attention as I welcome onto the stage Steve Jast from Gazelle and Douglas McCuaig from Cognizant.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks very much. Thank you. So Doug, why don't we start off by having you talk to us a little bit about what Cognizant does?
Sure.
And then we can start to zoom in a bit on Canada.
So I think it's important that we're in Toronto, we're in Canada. The biggest discussion the two of us had was who sat on the right, who sat on the left. So we decided who played right wing in hockey and who played left wing. And
that's how we decided. I like to shoot on my off wing.
Yeah, so Cognizant has been in business for 25 years. It has 170,000 people around the world, about $16 billion US of annual revenue. And we really help accelerate our clients' digital business. That's really in 3 different service lines, helping them with their digital strategy and their digital customer experience, helping them mobilize that through digital technology and then run it within digital operations. So those are the things that we do. So we help people, companies become digital.
Okay, perfect. So tell us what Cognizant's footprint in Canada looks like today.
Well, it's grown really fast. Last year we grew over 40%. We have about 3,000 people in Canada now, most of them in the center of the country.
Right.
So in Ontario, a little bit in Quebec and a little bit out west, but mostly here in Ontario, about 3,000 people today. And we grow at about 150 professionals to 200 a month. So we hire a lot of people. We're growing quite fast.
Okay. So before we get into the specifics about, why Cognizant chose Canada and all the great things that Canada and Ontario have to offer for companies that want to come and invest, how did you get started in Canada? What was Cognizant's original reason for coming to the country?
Well, the original reason was, to follow clients on both north-south of the border, so both in the U.S. and Canada. But then the reason turned into the market size of Canada. That is a substantial market in itself, not just helping clients on both sides of the border, but the critical mass of clients here in Canada moved it to a different strategy. How do we get much larger, much bigger in Canada because of the market base? And the other real reason is the talent. Canadian talent, no longer do you have to move to where the work is, you can actually move the work to where the people are.
Right.
So the second reason was really the talent base in Canada.
Okay. So as the company was looking to invest in Canada, in Ontario, in other parts of Canada, as we know, Canada has a 3-tiered government. So maybe talk to us a little bit about your experience in working with the federal government, the provincial government, municipal government, and the different roles that they all played in facilitating Cognizant coming to Canada and then growing from there.
I think it was really important because as a large global company, every month I get 500 people around the world that want to move to Canada from within Cognizant.
It's amazing.
And that includes the federal government helping with immigration. That includes working with our clients to help them get a mortgage, buy a house, buy a car. So our clients help a lot. At the Ontario provincial level, it's which provinces to locate. And then each city helps us, locating our people. Our first development center we had in Mississauga here in Ontario, and it grew quickly from 200 people now to 600 people.
Right.
And then our digital operations, where we do much of the social media, management of social media platforms, we do in North York, Ontario. And so the local governments, City of Toronto, City of Mississauga, helped us with real estate, helped us with location, and then the provincial government helped us coordinate with the federal government. So all levels of government through Invest Canada really helped us bring all the levels of government together to make sure that we establish ourselves in the right places.
Right, so all the stakeholders were aligned, they were on the same page, all reading from the same playbook, which made it much easier for you, obviously.
Yeah, they're all working together rather than working against each other.
With the same message, 100%.
Exactly.
That's critical. That's critical. So when you first came to Canada, it was a smaller group.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you had other global operations that would dearly have loved to expand as well, perhaps even at the expense of the Canadian operation. How were you able to prove to headquarters that Canada was the place to continue to grow from?
Really, it's those three things that we just talked about. The first thing is it's a market on itself, and you really want to be. We want to be in countries where we're about a $500 million company. Want to be $1 billion in this region, and so it has a critical mass of clients, financial services, insurance, banks, insurance, manufacturing, government. So it's a very mature and changing market, and a huge opportunity for us to help clients here. So the number one reason was market size. You know, Canada being part of the G7, that's an important part of our
growing
market.
economy.
A growing economy. The second thing is that access to talent, and you want to be in places where not only people want to migrate to from around the world, but also where the colleges, universities graduate the talent that we need in order to grow.
Right.
And so we've built specific programs from different colleges and universities to hire the talent here in Canada. And that's about 50-70% of our growth is domestic, where we hire people local.
Okay.
And then the other part is all levels of government. So if you have the market, you have the talent, then you need the help of the three levels of government to help us, because we're growing fast. We need help of how to expedite location analysis, where to put our buildings, where to house our people. And we want to house them in places where they have easy commute. So the environment, the lifestyle is very important. And the city of Toronto was very important to be on the subway system. And Mississauga was very close to communities, cultural communities where our people are from. And so it was really important for us to have those three components working together to make it a market.
Right. So Canada has a fairly aggressive, liberal immigration policy, particularly for knowledge workers.
Yeah.
You mentioned that Canada is a highly coveted destination by the folks working at Cognizant around the world. How many, by percentage, folks in Canada are expats from other Cognizant locations?
Yeah, like I said, it's an interesting model because our clients want people that know how our methodologies, how we work, and talent that has experience. So that's about 50%. Of our workforce is from other parts of the world.
Right.
And the other 50% are new hires, people that we're bringing in domestically, either from local cities or they're moving from other parts of Canada to where we're hiring.
Right.
Because, you know, they want to go to a global, a lot of talent wants to go not only local, but be part of a global company so that Canadians can join and not only work close to home,
and
but they have the
as well. Sure.
as the career progresses. Because when you're young, the whole world,
a huge benefit,
right?
For
and
sure.
when you have children, you want to be close to grandparents.
Yeah, no, obviously, 100%. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
What are some of the growth plans for Cognizant moving forward?
Yeah, we want to double or triple our size here in Canada.
Nice.
But we want to do it. The key in our industry, it's all based on capability and delivery. You don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. And so we'll grow. Our demand's bigger than sometimes our supply, because you want to bring people on and make sure that they know our methods, our tools. And so we're very selective of how we grow, how we bring our clients on, because the growth is there. Like I said, the market's there, the talent's here, but you have to make sure you deliver for every client.
100%.
And all the stakeholders, you know, benefit. Our clients, of course, our people want to be good part of incredible projects that are very successful with our clients, and all levels of government want to make sure that they are investing in an organization that has a strong foundation of very successful clients that are growing not only here in Canada but grow around the world with us as well.
Right. Well, talking about governments investing in companies, forgot I had a microphone on. There are lots of jurisdictions from around the world that offer very aggressive incentives, fiscal and financial incentives.
Sure.
Of course, we have our SR&ED, our R&D tax credits in Canada,
Yep.
which do a wonderful job at offsetting some of the costs in basic discovery and in R&D. But when you're talking to HQ, does the subject of incentives and grants come up? And whereas, hey, when we look at the Amazon case and all these huge incentive packages, like at Foxconn in Wisconsin, for example. Is that ever a discussion internally?
Sure. I mean, incentives are always important. But the thing for sustainable, like we've been in business for 25 years, we want to be in Canada for the next 25, 50 years.
Right.
So you look for sustainable competitive advantage. And so the things, and I know I sound like I'm repeating myself, but because it has a strong market and that can sustain the growth, we have very successful companies here in Canada that we're working with that are not only important here in Canada, but around the world. So the market's there. The second thing is the talent. You can't invent talent.
No.
And so even the government helps there because the investments in artificial intelligence, the investments that are going into the different universities and colleges at all levels, and all provinces are involved as well. So federal, provincial, and local. That investment in education that's foundational to the new economy, the digital economy.
Right.
That is something that is long-term. It's not a short-term incentive. So those two things, if it wasn't for those two things, you can't sustain a market.
Right.
So then you put the strong cooperation at all levels of government. It just makes it easier to grow faster because the market's there, the talent's there. Then if you have the three levels of government working with you, you can actually mobilize more effectively, more efficiently, and faster.
Yeah, I often get asked about incentives and the role that incentives play. And I always say that when a jurisdiction has very aggressive incentives, there's usually a reason. And they're usually offsetting poor efficiencies, poor productivity, poor availability of labor, poor infrastructure. So to your point, you want to locate in a jurisdiction where you're going to be able to accomplish your mandate successfully, without needing to fill your coffers with government subsidies.
Yeah, and I think a big change is happening in Canada around the digital economy is that if you think about Canada was born on the natural resources below the ground. Today we're investing on the human resources above the ground.
Yeah, I love that
and
saying.
the human resources above the ground are globally competitive.
Mm-hmm.
In the knowledge base and the digital economy, you can work here, but your knowledge and your capability is transferable on a global basis.
Yeah.
And so I really believe that the investments and the talent, the investments by the government at all levels in that talent creation, all companies and all the markets that we support can take advantage of that, the new human resource above the ground, which will differentiate Canada on a global scale.
I agree, and I think it comes from the wonderful institutions of higher education and the increased output of STEM graduates. And I was listening to our Prime Minister Trudeau's comments last night where he talked about Canada's great immigration policy that brings in a lot of wonderful talent. And we're the beneficiary of that at Gazelle.ai. So Gazelle.ai is a startup. We basically built a business intelligence platform that prognosticates corporate growth. But when I look across our tech folks and our tech team, we have a national from Armenia, we have a national from Iran, we have a national from Australia, we have a national from Western Canada. I think we only have one person from Montreal, where our R&D team is situated, working on the product. So that type of environment lends itself to wonderful creativity, different points of view, different points on how to manage, and I think that works wonderfully to the benefit to the company that brings in these kinds of people.
Yes, I think that Canada has embraced and needs to continue to embrace both the development of talent within our educational system and talent from the rest of the world. When I started in technology, if I look at technology like a glass of water, the amount of technology 20 years ago ran the financials for most organizations. Then it went into the HR department. Then it went into supply chain. Then it went into the front office and the web. And now the glass of water of every company is full with digital. And so when you look at where to invest from a government and a skills perspective, and for young people in the world that are sitting here in Canada, right across Canada, this is not the digital revolution, the technology that we're dealing with our clients, this is not a fad for 5 years. This is 100 years of investment in technology of a career. And so that's the best part about what you and I get to work with our clients.
Right.
And building the talent is these jobs are sustainable, they are a career path, and they're transferable all over the world. And so when you feel like you're hiring that talent and you're investing in them,
Right.
is that you're investing in their long-term life, sustainability. And so that's why I keep going back to the human resources above the ground versus the natural resources below the ground. We're shifting that value in Canada.
Right.
And I think the more that we can invest in young people and also reinventing people that really didn't think technology was really for them.
Sure.
Because all technology is, I always ask people, what's the definition of computer coding? And they start getting analytical and mathematical with me. And I go, what it does, it automates business processes. It automates work. And so the digital revolution, what we're all working in, is how do you automate and make a society more productive?
Right.
That productivity curve never ends.
No.
So by hiring people and building businesses in these areas, it's a never-ending curve. You have to be more and more productive all the time.
Yeah.
You have to invest more and more all the time in your human resources and your people, because our business is we don't want to rent hands like the manufacturing industry. We want the brain and the
Right.
heart. And that's the difference with this industry.
So you were in charge of European operations in a
Before,
previous life.
yeah.
I'd be curious to know how the innovation in Canada compares to some of the other countries that you've worked in. Where do we stand, globally speaking?
Yeah, I think context and a global experience is really important. And I think we're lucky. We're sitting in Toronto, which is the most multicultural city in the world. And we have people that have experience all over the world. So over 50% of the people that live here were not born here. And so I think the same thing's happening in Montreal, the same thing's happening in Calgary and Vancouver, is the more that we can embrace not only what we need locally, but also strong immigration, strong skills, because there is lots of work for everybody. You don't have to protect the industry. And so when I look at Canada's competitiveness, though, is that it's a moving target all the time. It's a snapshot for today, your industry. And the challenge is talent moves globally now. Ideas move globally. And so
Easily in the blink of an eye.
the degree of competitive advantage shrinks all the time.
Yeah.
Because of that movement of talent, that movement of knowledge. And so there are amazing things that are going on in Europe. Germans with manufacturing. You go to a car automotive environment in Germany, and you think you're in a Star Wars movie, because everything is AI. Everything, the customer picks his or her car, then it goes into a glass tower and they can see their car in it. Like, the whole world of manufacturing has changed. The whole world of logistics has changed. I'll give you an example. One of the harbors in Europe, it's the Rotterdam used to be the biggest harbor in the world, and now parts of Asia have the biggest harbors in the world. And they wanted to be competitive. And Rotterdam shares between the Netherlands and Belgium, the harbor. And their problem was, if we dredge it for the bigger ships, is it Dutch soil or is it Belgium soil? So if you dig. And so what a group of data analytics did, data scientists, is they made 13 meters of water 50 without digging.
Right.
By staggering the number of ships that come in, changing the depth of the water by how you actually manage the harbor. Looking at the moon, tides, wind direction, weather, you can actually make water deeper.
Right.
That's what's happening around the world. And how do we always be aware of it and then bring it to Canada? How do we make it better?
Right.
And the key of this is always the execution. There are lots of ideas. It's who can execute it faster and then continuously learn.
Right. Well, Doug, it's been a wonderful conversation. We didn't really get a chance to talk about some of the stakeholders like Ryerson University, where I believe you're a graduate of.
Seneca.
Yeah, okay.
We're doing a special program right now with Seneca.
Right, where you're a graduate of, right?
No.
No, you're a graduate of Ryerson.
3 universities.
Okay, right, okay. So I would like to have talked a little bit about Mars and the Vector Institute and Seneca, but we'll have to do that another time.
Okay.
But I think what we can agree on, maybe not where you did your education, but what we can agree on,
Right wing and left wing.
right wing and left wing, is that Canada, Ontario, and the other spots around Canada are a wonderful place for technology. They're wonderful breeding grounds for innovative ideas, whether you're a startup or whether you're a global company, and we would encourage all companies interested in growing to look at Canada as a wonderful platform from which to do so.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.